this evening. My name is Eric Sandstrom, and I'm the director of the Energy Council of West Weld. Our organization is a grassroots team of business and community leaders dedicated to promoting responsible energy development and sustainable economic growth in Weld County. I also serve on the Carbon Valley Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. It is our privilege to partner with the Chamber to host this forum. I'd like to take a moment to thank a few people for helping to put this together. First of all, thank you to Julia Davis, the Chamber's Executive Director, and Judy Ziwi, the Chamber's Executive Assistant, for helping us to promote this event tonight and help put everything together. Also like to thank Chris Combs, the President of our Board of Directors and a Commercial Relationship Manager at Sunflower Bank. And lastly, I'd like to thank Brett Keniston. He's the librarian here at the library. He set up the room and helped coordinate everything on the library's end tonight. We all share the belief that it is important for citizens to have the opportunity to hear from the candidates seeking to represent them. Speaking of candidates, thank you to all of you for being here this evening. In Firestone's 2016 spring municipal election, there are 3 candidates for mayor and 5 candidates for 3 open board of trustee positions. The candidates for mayor are incumbent Paul Sorensen, who unfortunately could not be here tonight, and I'll talk a little more about Paul in just a second. We have current trustee Matt Holcomb. We have former trustee Kelly Morgan. The candidates for trustee are John Damsma, George Heath, Drew Peterson, Jeremy Pilon, and Douglas Sharp. We are not going to have the candidates introduce themselves tonight because we're so tight on time, but there are bios for all of them at the back that Amber has, if you would like to read about the candidates and their background a little bit. Paul Sorensen, the current mayor of Firestone, unfortunately could not be here tonight. He has come down with bronchitis. He was at the doctor today, spent all day in bed, so he wanted me to offer up his contact information. It should be on the bios in the back. If you have questions that you would like Paul to answer, please, he wanted you to feel free to contact him, and he wanted to wish all of the other candidates luck this evening. At this time, I would like to introduce Chris Combs, our moderator for this evening's discussion. Mr. Combs will facilitate a question and answer session for all of the candidates, and he will explain more about the format once he's up here. One other note real quick, we are gonna wrap up promptly at 7:50. We have to be totally and completely out of the library by 8 p.m. So if you wanna stay around and chit chat, that's great. It's a beautiful evening, please do it outside. Chris Combs is the president of the Carbon Valley Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. And
questions. Each candidate will have a maximum of 90 seconds to answer each question, and we will rotate which candidate answers first. Kelly was drawn earlier in the evening and will answer the first question first. We'll save time for a couple of questions at the end from the audience. Questions are to be submitted in written form to Eric. He's going to hand out, or has already handed out.
Amber has the sheets in the back.
There you go. If we don't get to your question, please still write it down. That way we can hand it out to the candidates, and if they choose to answer it later, or we can arrange something electronically. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough time to get to everybody's question. So candidates are going to have 90 seconds to answer each question, continuing the same rotating order from the prepared question portion. Time's going to be kept by Eric. Eric will give indications when there is 1 minute remaining and when there's 10 seconds remaining. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the first question right now. Kelly, this one, you're going to start with this, and then we'll just rotate right down the line. The towns surrounding Firestone, Erie, Frederick, Dacono, Johnstown, Meade, and Fort Lupton are all growing. What is your plan and vision for regional cooperation? And what is your vision for keeping Firestone distinct from the surrounding cities and towns?
Well, mostly it starts with communication. Most of the leaders all around get to know each other over the years, and it just starts an open line of communication. The mayors talk, and if there's questions or they need information, they go back to their town and to their town staff, and then the process kind of goes from there. We've always had pretty good working relationships with Dacono and Frederick because they are our closest. Meade, we've had some communication back and forth, and so it's just, whether it's the mayors, whether it's the trustees, or whether it's town staff, the town manager, it's just opening those lines But it always comes down to Firestone comes first. So we do what's right for Firestone, we do what's in the best interest of Firestone, and hopefully, being able to keep the towns, the neighboring towns at least, with open lines and a positive, relationship, so, in that process. Am I close?
You've got 25 seconds.
And then the second part would be, how would you keep Firestone distinct from them? What would you do to make it distinct?
Well, with our master plan, you know, that's something that's a living document, so we always work on it, and we're always, evolving, one way or the other, so it's always just making sure, whether feedback from the community, feedback from the trustees, and then to the mayor, to the town staff, is to make sure that,
Time.
what.
Finish your sentence.
I stopped abruptly. What is best, or what the residents, are looking for, that's what's best for Firestone, and we wanna make sure that that's, what we do as a governing body, so, totally got off track, sorry.
My
Thanks,
fault.
Kelly, sorry.
When I call time, finish your sentence.
Well, hi, I'm John, and Kelly drew the first, she thought, oh no, I have to answer first. And she was able to give all her information, and the communication, the emphasis on communication was excellent. And I would like to stress that also. Communication among the trustees, fellow trustees, and then the government officials throughout the Carbon Valley area. Were many of you here in 2012, 2013 with the flood? Anybody here for the flood? All right, do you remember that all of a sudden we became an island? And we couldn't get in, we couldn't get out, it was terrible. And the interesting thing that happened is that we learned that we needed to depend on others as well. That we, not only was the infrastructure we had going important, but we needed to rely and cooperate with people outside and communities outside of the area. So that's a valuable lesson I learned then. So I would like to seek that communication, going along with what Kelly said, with the other governmental agencies, and also to keep Firestone still as a priority. And the way I can see Firestone being distinct is that it's concerned for its people, but also for its recreational facilities, which I would like to see improved.
My turn. I'm gonna come at it a little differently. All three towns are unique. They have their own characteristics. They have their own personalities. They have their own goals. Those need to remain. But everybody's referred to the flood, and the flood taught us that we cannot stand alone in every issue. We must reach out to our neighbors and become part of all that's going on around us. So what's good for Firestone is good for Frederick and good for Dakota in a lot of things. And likewise all the way around. So I would like to see Firestone, obviously, be number one, because we're in it to win it. And ultimately, at some point, we will be the largest municipal in the area. We've annexed 1,300 acres, there's 3,500 homes coming. Depending on whether you take the Census Bureau 3 persons to a house or 4. I'd like to take 4 just to fatten it up tonight. If you do that, we've got, I lost my math, but you got about 20,000 people coming to Firestone in the next 15 years. You say that's not true? They're telling us at the state level that we're gonna get 100,000 new people in Colorado this year. The majority of them are going to live on the Front Range if we can find housing.
Okay, all right, so lots been said here, and I have to echo some of what George said. There is 3 towns in this community. If you've ever listened to me on, read anything I wrote on Nextdoor, I talk about this thing called 3 towns, 1 community. And we are three towns, we are unique, and we have our distinct personalities and our own visions, but we bring to this community unique capabilities and features. Frederick is big, their feature really is they talk about it, they promote it quite a bit, they have the downtown. Well, what does Firestone bring? We talk about what makes Firestone unique and distinct. I see it as our central park. We haven't developed it yet. It's sitting right around this library, but it's 272 acres of land dedicated to park activities, to community activities. It's what we bring, and it's our distinction as a town, is this park. It is also our distinction and what we bring to this community of Carbon Valley is this park. And I think that we need to look at this, not so much that it's all about Firestone first or whatever, it is Firestone first. I think that's reasonable to say. But what makes us a community is what those values that all three towns bring. And that's what I'd like to see promoted, and I'd like to focus on this park as being the center of Firestone.
Hi folks, I'm Jeremy Pylon. I actually was part of the town planning and zoning commission for the last 5 years. I chaired that commission and had a good time doing so. But a couple things I'd like to kind of reiterate. I think Drew Peterson hit it. You know, what makes Firestone different, what makes Firestone so unique to this area here. I think it really should be this Central Park location. We had this location set out in our master plan many years ago, and we haven't done a whole lot with it. And I think we kind of need to come back and revisit that particular portion of it. It's important to me also, the community, and the police and the fire and, you know, all of our town services here. I think that's also one thing that makes us very unique. The, you know, what was it, 2 years ago, 2013, that we won the award saying that we were the safest community out in this particular area or region. That's a huge accomplishment, but for us to maintain that, we also have to invest in those particular services. So I'd like to see us actually do that and move forward with that type of a plan. Working together as far as our towns here, that's accomplished through IGAs, and you know, with Frederick, Dacono, Meade, we work pretty well with those folks, and I'd like to continue to see that particular thing happen. However, you know, however we have to do that. So, thank you.
Good evening, Doug Sharp, obviously candidate for trustee. I'm also a member of the finance committee for the town of Firestone, so I've been involved in looking at a lot of our issues. I very much agree with all the previous comments. Communication is a major area. That's my business. I do communication systems for public safety, first responders, and we say at the work, it's all about communication, but it doesn't end there. It's also about cooperation. We have to work together to not have our personal agendas, and I think this previous boards and the town staff have done a pretty good job there. But I'm a small business owner, and I have to come up with ways to do things with the limited funds we have. And that's what I'd like to do on the board. I do believe that Firestone has very good services. What differentiates us? We're gonna take those good services, we're gonna make them better. We're gonna find ways to attract the right businesses here that give us the support that we need to attract people to live here. We have to continue to improve our policies on building. That will differentiate us. When we can obtain great fire service, we already have, you know, great fire service, but great police service, broadband, other services, people are gonna wanna live here, and I see my time is up.
Hi folks, my name is Matt Holcomb, I'm current trustee of the town of Firestone. When you look in terms of like regionalism with the different communities, it's there's kind of two spectrums. There's one at one end where you have like total regional compatibility and you work together closely, then you have total independence. And you know, it's kind of nice to have that regionalism because it does, you get certain economies of scale and things like that. But practically, I found in my experience the last 8 years, is somewhere in the middle. And what you do to that is you try and find places where you can agree. You know, can you agree on something? You know, so, you know, if you guys have ever negotiated with somebody that may be hard to negotiate, you look for things that they can work together, in hope that you can sometime build upon that and do those things. And each community is different. My experience with the different communities is it's different. Some we work better with, some we don't. Some we've had to pull off the lawyers. So it's kind of the thing. Start somewhere and hopefully build to that to improve for the future. In terms of keeping the community, kind of the theme or the spirit of the community, I think it's good to look at the past but dream towards the future, because I think of the community as being a living organism, and it's going to change. And don't get too attached to the way things are, because they're going to change. And fortunately or unfortunately, we live in a community that changes very radically. So you gotta, the way to do that is to get input from board members, public, and communities around us in order to make the best options for those around us. So, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Moving on, John, you're on the hot seat for the first time here.
All right.
What types of businesses are you looking to attract to town, and how do you view the role of government in attracting and retaining these businesses?
Well, the businesses I'd like to attract, some nice restaurants, perhaps some shopping that'd be a little closer, that could meet the needs, like the clothing needs of our community. We have Home Depot, of course, and they service us very well, but I'd like to see that. And then also, we're having some great businesses open up within the town already, and I'd like to encourage them to continue to come to Firestone and develop here. There's a restaurant, Pepper Jack's, that'll be opening soon near Ace Hardware, and there's I don't know how many of you know, but there's an office park just to the north of Ace. And there are a number of businesses in there that have just opened, professionals usually. And then there's Sports Clips that just opened in right near the King Supers. So I would like to see a balance in, there'll be some bigger businesses coming in to support us, and then a lot of mom and pops that could work the true entrepreneurial spirit to keep our town close. And I would also then encourage them to come to us with some incentives, because a lot of times you have to give incentives, but not to give the house away. You can't give a business everything and beg them to come. They have to want to come because they want to be here. Thank you.
Hey, John, I look at it a little bit differently, but not a lot. First of all, for businesses to come, we have to have rooftops. They will not come without rooftops. 2 years ago, I talked to the area manager for the SBA. We were talking. He said, "What is your population?" And I gave him the figure. I said, "How can we double it?" He said, one word: rooftops. If you don't have rooftops, they won't come. There's no market for their product. So rooftops are very important. The other thing is that I think communities need to be a little more aggressive than they are today. I'll quickly use the Cabela's. We lost Cabela's. They were looking at us, and Thornton came along and gave them the land. Who's going to turn that down? And the two stores generating $100 million in tax money. When I was in business, I didn't hang a sign up and say, "Y'all come." I went out and got some business, and my business grew. It grew from 0 in 2 years to $250,000 income. But it wasn't because I said to the market there in Dallas, "Y'all come." I went out and created that business. So I hope that we can be more aggressive in bringing businesses here. We've heard about sit-down restaurants forever. We all want them. But that supports us is industry and businesses that have employees that live here and pay their taxes here.
I think that this is all, actually, I've got to echo that same, I'm not gonna go too much of that, but we have a parcel of land, a very large parcel of land to the west of I-25 that is sitting undeveloped. It is probably the most ideal location. There's a hospital going in right at County Road, County Line Road and Highway 119. And that's gonna bring around a lot of business, a lot of opportunities for business. And that land would be an optimal place for offices, for medical offices, for restaurants to service around that area. It would bring a lot of revenue to this town. And focusing on that, I think would be a great idea. As far as inside of our town, I think we need to promote a lot more. I think what's great about it, I don't want, in my opinion, chain restaurants so much as I want restaurants like Pepper Jack's, ones that are owned inside of our community, and we're supporting people that are within our own community. And that money is going back into our community as opposed to a corporation outside. But we also do need to have offices, businesses, and those kind of things. And that is where I think we have plenty of land along I-25, and that's where I'd like to see where we look at offices and those kinds of businesses, and then of course developing retail along 119 and now 66. So that's my thoughts. Thanks.
You know, if I think of the town's master plan, it is a living, breathing document, and I think about the businesses that are set to, take place within this town here. Myself personally, I'd love to see additional restaurants in here, obviously. I think we all would. I'd like to see more sit-down type of restaurant. I like the mom and pop type of shops as well too, but chain restaurants are just fine as well. As far as other businesses are concerned, I think we should be selective as to what's coming into our town. I don't think we should just approve every business that happens to come our way because we want the revenue coming into the town. Revenue is a very good thing, obviously, but I think we should be selective. I don't want us to, Firestone Boulevard to be like the old Colfax down in Lakewood there. That was a very poor design, and when they planned that, there was a lot of buildings that just kind of popped up because they were building it. I don't want to see that happen. I want to see this actually planned out, take place, and have it be a community where I'm going to be here for the next 20, 30 or so years. Already been here for 15 years, have no intention of going anywhere else. This is where I'm going to be. So I want to see that actually happen and take place. Additional services to the town, retail would be great. Some clothing stores would be great. I wouldn't mind seeing a couple big box places, at Target, something to that effect. Wouldn't mind seeing something like that. That's kind of where I stand.
Very much agree. You've been here 15 years, you said. I've been here 16 years. I moved here because I was working in Boulder and I honestly couldn't afford a home in Boulder. And I moved out here and I said, there's no grocery store. There wasn't a bank really. There wasn't a lot out here. There were a few things, but not the choices. So I think the big box stores and the larger businesses are wonderful, and I frequent them. And obviously, I love to eat just like everybody else, and I would frequent the restaurants very much so. But I'd also like to see more small businesses and ways for small businesses to succeed out here. As I mentioned, I'm a small business owner. I have 14 employees, and it's often tough for me to get over that hump for something as simple as an IT service. I had a server go down, and I don't have in-house IT, and I had to call in somebody at high expense. I would love to see more small, affordable business locations, similar to the one that I saw that went in near Adams Bank and Ace. And in there, it seemed like there were some that were turning into incubator centers, that they were sharing the space, and helping businesses, small businesses that aren't competing with each other, working together to succeed here and offer the services we need. So, I'm seeing the red flag. So, over to you, Matt.
Thank you. what's cool about tonight is it reminds me of 8 years ago when I started this whole process and became a trustee. It's exciting. This town has many exciting things in front of it, and I think Kelly could probably echo how cool that was. And
Yeah.
I'm a little more seasoned, but I'm just as excited, and that's why I'm here tonight too. But what I think is important in terms of the business is creating an environment that's attractive to business. You know, looking for building a kind of a theme through the organization. When I say the organization, the town, and through the community that says we welcome business. We want business to come here. We want business to be. We're excited when you come here. We're going to engage you. We're going to pursue you. We're going to answer your questions, and we're going to make sure you know Firestone exists. So that's kind of one of the key things I think is important to get attracting business. Second thing is look for things that what do businesses want? They want low cost and low risk. So work on things like work on our process, our internal process that do those things. How can we make development less expensive for business and less risky? How can we connect them up with grants or enterprise zones that help do those things? So that's, I think, important to getting businesses here. And I'm more of a market-driven person. As a person who owns a small business, Firestone's a great place to start a business. It's very receptive to start a business. So we're doing the right things. It's gonna come. We just gotta pursue it a little more aggressively. And that would be my focus as a mayor to really go after that. So.
Matt is correct. The two of us probably have a very different different perspective than everybody else. But I remember when I was on the board, we've had businesses approved throughout the years. But part of the economy comes and it doesn't come to fruition. You know, we've approved buildings behind Sherman-Williams. There's buildings that have been approved in businesses behind the lots and the land over by Walgreens. So those processes are in place and those foundations are set. And that's what we need to continue to do, is make sure that we as Firestone have the process easy for them. Back when Matt and I got on, we prided ourselves that when you came in and you went through the process, put an application in for business or whatever, 6 to 8 weeks and you were approved. None of the other communities around us were doing that. So, and we were very proud of that. And it worked very well, and it needs to go back to that. And so if we have those lots in the land and that process ready when the economy's better and when people come in, this is still a bedroom community. 80% of the people that live in Firestone commute. They commute out of the area, whether it's north or south. So the more that we are able to bring those businesses in and keep our citizens in Firestone, the more that's going to come. You know, the rooftops are true, but we need to be able to take care of the rooftops that we have currently as well. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our next question, and if you're sitting in the back, there's a couple chairs up here if you're brave enough to walk through the crowd. I've already pointed you out, so.
I know, if you guys stand, they can hear you.
Given that the oil and gas industry has such a large presence in the area, how do you view the town's current relationship with the industry? What is working well, and where is there room for improvement?
It's you.
Okay. We do have a good working relationship with the oil and gas industry. You can take Sable Avenue, for example. About a year ago, they came to us and said, we would like to drill 21 wells out in an open area. If you remember the road Sable from Birch west, it was dirt and rock and rumble. And when they got through, our agreement was, you can drill the wells out in the field, but they offered to say, we'll fix the roads. That was a collaborative effort, and we're benefiting from it. One of our employees here in the town said, I love Sable Avenue now. I can get to work in twice the time that I could before. Just go straight down to the frontage road and straight over. There are funds for us as the town that help support all the activities. Now, I grant you, there are some roads in town that are bumpity bump because of the trucks. And at some point, we're gonna have to take that in. But we do receive revenue from the oil and gas industry. I'm not opposed to them. I drive my car. I spend more on gas than probably all of you together in a month. So we need them. But we've got a good relationship with them. That's good.
Okay, I, obviously, since I'm not on the board, I don't have details of how the relationship works within the town government per se, but my perception as a citizen of this and resident of this town is it's been a pretty symbiotic relationship, that there's a good balance between the gas and oil companies that drill here and operate here in our town. We do see the benefits, like you said, Sable Avenue and other things that they do contribute to our town, our economy. I see that, like, for example, as we said, Central Park here, one of the things that was brought up was the challenges of building here, developing this for any purpose, from a rec center or whatever, that there's a lot of pipes that go through this property, and in order to be able to develop that, this property, there will need to be some adjustments to how those pipes are run and those kinds of things. What I would like to see, of course, is the collaboration, cooperation of those companies and our town to be able to make accommodations so that we can live symbiotically with those wells on our property, and still be able to develop our property in a way that we can use that property for a nice park. But that's all I need to say on that. Thanks.
We have a great working relationship with the oil and gas companies. The town does receive, funds from them, which is great because we can use those funds to put towards roads and other features and things that we'd like to do here. It is, however, though, I would tell folks that it is the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission that does control when, how, and where wells are drilled, and it is not the town's place to say how that works there. So I will tell you that it is very important that folks do know that, because a lot of times we get questions. Having chaired the planning commission for 5 years for the town, we would have folks show up and say, I really don't like this well going behind my house, and we understand that, but it is the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission that controls that. We as a town have very limited to say as to what we can ask those oil and gas companies to do. They actually are gracious enough to do the things that they do currently by putting up the barriers, the sound deadening material, and doing some of those things. Now, I'd like to see that collaboration continue there, but again, just keep in mind, it is the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission that does control and work with those oil companies. So.
And I've attended a number of the planning and zoning meetings, and I've seen what the commission does, and does a very good job. And you're right, a lot of it is out of our control. As George pointed out, the access and the improvements are numerous, and I think you said it takes double the time, but it takes half the time on Sable, as long as you obey the speed limit. I don't think the chief's here, but he reminded us of that last night. It is the 35 zone. But so there's a lot of benefits and positives to the oil and gas. But the couple of meetings that I went to at Planning and Zoning, I noted there were a number of citizens that came in and said, hey, this is in my backyard. I have young kids. This is right near a school entrance. And the town worked diligently to address those. But part of that is what we've been talking about, communication. And we have to make sure that the brochures and the scientific research is out there and reaching the people. The last is, in my development, I have, through my own backyard, I have oil and gas lines running through there that unfortunately have been abandoned. But it's difficult for me to get those easements removed, and there are lots that we can't even build on because there's abandoned equipment that is still on the plans. So we need to work as a board to make sure that what's there is being used, and if it isn't, make room for our homeowners to buy property and enjoy this wonderful town.
So anytime you have two different interests on one piece of property, that's going to lead to some complications, and the state has levied certain statutory requirements that guide how those things happen, and so we kind of use those. But what the town has done is kind of gone above that and just added a few little things like noise control, access, hours of operation, things that kind of make that a little bit better. And that's a good collaboration. That's the common things that make things better. It's still kind of a nuisance to have oil wells sitting around in your backyard or your neighbors, and people, there's a perception that they can be harmful or noisy or reduce property values. So what I've always encouraged the board to do is, and I think this is coming up shortly, is as we look at our regulations for oil and gas, is to kind of push technology and push that collaboration the next step. How are ways we can make it safer? How are ways we can make it less disruptive to the community? You know, put it in places more industrial, commercial areas. What are things that we can do to encourage them voluntarily to do those things? And that's really all we can do, unless the citizens rise up and overtake the industry somehow. But it's really a pretty good symbiotic relationship the way we have it now, and we're getting certain things from the industry that we probably wouldn't get otherwise. So I think it's working pretty well.
I have to agree with that as well. You know, the oil and gas companies come into this area, and Weld County is the highest county that brings in oil and gas. I mean, we drill more here than we do anywhere else, and so hopefully, as citizens, we get more information. We're going to realize it's not going away. It may slow down right now, but it's going to come back up. But the companies that come in, they're more than willing to work with citizens and towns to make it a win-win situation for both parties. They're not going to come in and, you know, the town's done very well in the past to if we need more barriers or if we need the noise control. Those companies are going to do what they can. They're not here to disrupt lives, but it's, as Jeremy had brought up, there's a bigger picture. We have to look at it from a global standpoint. So, and do what we can from our community to make it work for both the citizens and the town, so.
For years and years, the U.S. has been struggling and trying to get to the point where we can be energy independent, and we're exploring alternate means, solar and wind energy sources. But the fossil fuels right now is very prevalent and very readily available to us. So yes, I see with the oil and gas industry that we are partners with them, and yes, they are controlled by the state and they have guidelines. So, but we can work with them. And I can bring it down to a local level. I live in Stone Ridge, and I was on the HOA board for a long time. And there were three wells within Stone Ridge on our common area. And do you know what? The oil and gas industry came to us and said, okay, these are deadhead, what would you like us to do? And we said, can you remove them? And they removed 2 out of the 3 wells that we had in question on our property. They came and capped them, and now we're looking, they recovered the property, and now we are looking to see if we can get the easement removed, and if they will do that so that we can use that. I can see that that kind of working relationship with the oil and gas industry is necessary for not only now, for years to come.
George, you answered first, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Did you want to answer again?
Yeah.
Probably, actually. No, George. So we've got 2 more questions that are prepared, and then we'd like to take some audience questions. So if you don't have a piece of paper, now's the time to get one. And then after the next question, Amber, if you just go ahead and start collecting them, if you haven't. So if you have a question you'd like to get asked, please hand it in, and then we'll pick a couple at random. So, next question, and we're starting with you, Drew. What can and should be done to enhance the overall quality of life within the town? More parks and trails, more amenities, public recreation projects, your own ideas?
Yeah, well, I think we all know about 5A, which was a project to develop a rec center. Unfortunately, it was not the most, it was pushed very quickly, and a lot of planning wasn't done that would like to have been done. It was ideal, and I can tell you that that there are people that wish they could have. We do need a rec center in this part of the town. It's something that we need. The one we have is not sufficient. This park, I think I've said it about 4 times. This park is key, I think, to that, to providing that. And when it comes to development, we talk about houses and rooftops, and honestly, I'd like to have our growth be more about intelligent growth. Looking at how the next developer that comes here and wants to be annexed into our town, what do they provide, what benefit are they gonna provide to the current citizens of Firestone? And then how does that benefit us? For example, we need more affordable housing in this community. Our housing prices are going up, as they all do in all communities, and there's at some point there are people here that are retiring. They're having to leave our community. They can't stay here because the housing, there's not the options for them. I would like to see that that's what we focus on, is again, park, recreation, but also affordable housing options for those people in different levels of income. Thank you.
I think smart growth is probably a big one for me. You know, making sure that, again, having been on the Planning and Zoning Commission for many years, looking at those businesses and those developments that are actually coming into our town. And I think I said it earlier where, you know, as a business goes through the application or through the process, what is it that's coming into our town? Is this a business that fits with our town? Does this development fit with our town? You know, I love the acreage that's up here. I love the Central Park idea. I'd love to see a rec center up here. I think that's where it was initially slated for, was up here. I'd like to see that fulfilled, if it makes sense. You know, a couple other things I think also as well too for quality of life are gonna be, you know, our police department right now. Our police department really needs some help. Our police station, if you're not familiar with it, behind the Safeway over there, it just is not adequate. And, you know, we can't win awards being the safest community, as I said before, for 2013, without having good services. And I think that's the backbone of a community. You know, fire, police, and then your other critical services such as utilities, roads, which we've done a great job with roads as well too. So if we can focus on those areas, which we are focusing as a town, on the police station, and I think if we can focus on the rec district as well too, and work in collaboration with them, so.
I really agree. You know, trails, public recreation, Central Park, it's a wonderful thing. I live just a few hundred feet off of it, and I'd love to see it improve. But you're right, Jeremy, and also the services are very important. The internet is everywhere these days, and it enables, it seems, everything. Yet, where I live, just off of Pinecone, or Road 20, I only have one choice, and it's wireless, and it frequently is down. I'd like to see a little bit better services in that area, and that'll be a better quality of life for us. George mentioned the housing, and he's very passionate about it, and we've had many a great discussion about it. Beyond that, healthcare. I have elder parents, and we've found a live-in caregiver, but it was very tough, and there is a shortage of that out here, and if we can find a way to attract and bring these small businesses in that can help us, it's no longer we go to a nursing home, it's age at home pretty much. But the last area, and I don't know how I'm doing on time, I may have missed your 20. Community meeting sites, this library is wonderful, but this room is packed, and this is pretty much the largest one we have. We do have one over at the rec center. We need more. We need places for our kids to go that are safe, that are, they're learning things and they're not doing bad things. We need more community activities, Boy Scouts, churches, and space for us to do this. Mr. Matt.
So the traditional thing was to say more parks, but I think if you looked at, if you did not in our town, you can actually find one pretty well in terms of trails and parks where I like to use a term called overparked sometimes. And I don't mean that negatively, I just mean we've done a pretty good job of doing that in the past. So I think that's pretty good. The things I think are more non-traditional, probably the top of my list would be primary employment. You can, that's not necessarily something you do for recreational purposes, but it's something that's important to every one of us that has to work for a living. And it would be helpful to have those close by, so we could reduce commuting times, things like that. Other things like shopping, clearly that's a huge thing. What I think in terms of things that would improve my quality of life and those around me is things that reduce, that we don't have to leave town. Think of all the things you have to leave this area to go do. It's a reality because of the size of town we're at, but someday, the more we can bring those things in, keep those dollars here, reduce the impact on our roads, I think that's helpful. And you mentioned healthcare is a big one, jobs, shopping, employment. I think those are some of the biggest things that would improve our quality of life most effectively and immediately. And the big thing is kids. What do kids do? We've got a lot of kids out here, and that's, open parks aren't necessarily the best things, but I don't necessarily know what the next thing is, but something that kids can do, so, thank you.
That was the point I was gonna get to that hadn't been mentioned before as kids. With the 2010 census, 45% of the age that live in Firestone are anywhere from 35 to 54. And of that, 20% of them have kids 19 and younger. So it is having something to do for these kids or these families. The town right now does very well in the summer. We do the film and flick, or food and flick, sorry, food and flick. So those are things that we do as families. Christy had a couple of them this summer that just, there was people everywhere. And so obviously there's a need for it. And you know, in my bio, I have 4 kids, I have 3 boys, well, 4, not 4. Grew another one, but they're teenagers. And so to have a neighborhood, some neighborhoods are called walkability. Everything is within a 5-mile walking distance. You shop, you play, you go to school, you do the library, your services are all within that walkability period. And it's something that we have, you know, looked into the past, but that's the goal, is we don't have to drive to Longmont anymore to do our shopping. I don't have to drive to Longmont to take my oldest to the movies, and then I have to come back and get him. So how much better an impact would that be to us as citizens to have some of that, those services here?
And if we can get businesses, when businesses come, then additional revenue is generated for our community. I'm looking at what we're gonna give our kids. So what will make Firestone better in the future? I think I'd like to go in a little bit different area and talk about finance. And that is, we need to be responsible. So all these things that we want to make our community better, we need to be able to afford to do it in a reasonable and responsible way. So what we want for our kids, what we want for their kids as the generations go, we need to be responsible with our finances now and plan with our children in mind for future development. And so, yes, I would like to see better recreational facilities. The recreational parks, the baseball, softball fields are fantastic. And Central Park will one day be a great place to gather. And I don't know if, how many of you know, but right now, Central Park has a disc golf course active. It's just right over there. You can play disc golf.
We got an 18-holer here.
Yeah.
Prairie dog golf that way.
I'm not opposed to a lot of things that have been said tonight, but I want us to remember, I'm going to live to 100, and I'm gonna bug you for the next 24 years. I say all that to say Firestone is growing, folks, and it's growing out to the north. And as it grows out there, we need to be aware of the opportunities out there. We have some lakes out there. We have a sidewalk that goes under I-25 all the way over to St. Vrain State Park, and you can connect those two areas together for recreation. But we need to think beyond satisfying our needs right now. Because truth is, you're not gonna be here 30 more years. I'm not gonna be here, but I'd like to see some of those things starting now. What does the future hold for us as a whole? For those that come and those that are going to stay here and last to 100 years. So I'm looking not just right now, what satisfies me right now, but what is good for us tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and for our citizens. My hidden agenda is housing for our seniors. What are we gonna do with them? Where are they gonna go? If I had to hit that button right now and say I couldn't take care of my property anymore, there's no place for me to go, unless I wanna go to Longmont.
So, you can stay with me, George.
Oh, John, please no. But we need to look at that and think beyond right now, outside the box, as they say.
Drew, you answered that, you're
Yep.
first? Okay, Jeremy's gonna go next here.
Okay.
Our last prepared question before we take some questions from the audience. So if you have another question you want to get in, Eric's just about to pick them at random. What challenges do you see the town facing with regard to water, both in terms of providing water for ongoing development and to ensure a reliable, affordable supply for residents and businesses long-term?
That's a great question. Actually, water is going to be a huge issue for us in the future, and I think that that's one thing as a town that I know we're currently working on. You know, making sure that we are going to be able to supply water for the needs of our community. You know, there's been a lot said to you know, how do we acquire that extra water? How do we obtain that? Where's it going to come from? Well, that's going to be working in conjunction with our different water districts here. And as long as we're working with those water districts and we are thinking forward into the future, well then we should be just fine with our water. Now, we do need to, as a state, however, look at additional reservoirs. I mean, we just heard it, you know, what was it, USA Today? Colorado's the most desired community to live in here, or Denver. Well, there's a lot of folks that are going to be coming in. It's not going to be just our community that's going to be searching for water. There's going to be plenty of communities out there searching for it. And as long as we've got that on the forefront of our head, then, you know, I think we're going to be just fine as far as that's concerned. Snowpack, who knows? You know, we're the only state here out of the 48 lower states here that rely solely on snowpack for our water. Everybody else has either got some kind of river or some other way of acquiring water here, but we rely solely on our snowpack. So, you know, hopefully snowpack stays strong. But working with those different water districts, continuing to make sure that we are acquiring the water for the future, I think that's a big priority.
You know, fresh water is so important. And somebody joked with me that they said the leading cause of death in Colorado is disputes over water rights. It's probably true. Every month in the Finance Committee, we look at the water and where we are and what are our revenues and our tap fees and what are our leases available. So the town staff does a fabulous job, wonderful job of managing that. Well, let's think out of the box a little bit. Obviously, we all know we need to conserve, we need to be efficient, but how do we do that? There's got to be better ways, and I don't have every answer, but I have a bunch of good answers, and I would love to work with the other trustees to think out of the box and find ways to be a little more conserving. How can we enable the ditches that we have to local storage facilities and distribute that irrigation water? I drive by so many houses that I just see the fresh potable water flowing into the street. We don't have enough for that. We need to think out of the box. We need to find a way for our developers to be smart in their homes. We're hearing all these advertisements about solar homes and other efficient homes. Oh, he just gave me an extra minute. But solar homes, and how can we install the proper pieces of equipment that, with the town systems, we're able to monitor and see where we're being wasteful? How can we do that with our watering and move forward? And I think I'm getting the red flag. So let's think out of the box and figure out how to bring the developers into here with sufficient water shares so that we can keep moving forward. Sorry to waste some of your time on that.
I'm gonna still use all my time, so this is something I'm really proud about, because when I started as a trustee, if this was a cloud here in the western slope and this is your home, there was one pipe that went from here to here, basically one path. And there was some other things kind of tangential to that, but one of the things I pushed staff, and because I'm very proud of this, because I've been involved in this, is that we're looking for different ways, rather than this one point over there, this one cloud, how about some other places we can get water from? How are some places we can store water in different places? How are some ways we can treat water in different places? How are ways we can get water down to here? How are we? And some of that's been due to growth, because we've had to expand beyond our sole water district, but it's exciting. It's neat, because we're trying to drive the cost down. We're trying to make water fresh and available all the time, and we're trying to prepare ourselves for growth. So it's a very exciting time in terms of water right now.
So I'll add on to that. What Matt said is how we're gonna find water, different resources that we can use. How are we gonna do that? It comes down to communication. Having those relationships with other communities, because we're either buying shares or we're sharing shares, I don't know if that's the right term, with other communities to get these water rights to our community. So that's talking to the other communities. There's resources out there as a town staff or a town board. The Colorado Municipal League, which is huge within, they're out of Denver, but that's our resource. We go through seminars and we learn things about water and finding different ideas. We come back to our town. Those are the things that we can put together and we talk about as a trustee. We work with the town staff and get creative to get those water shares to our community. So, how long do I have? 30. There's also projects out there on a global level, whether throughout the state. Water just isn't a problem for Firestone or a concern, it's statewide. So making sure that we're up on all of the new projects that are going out. In 2008 through 2010, the big project that was going through was NISP, which is in northern Colorado. It's still there, but we're looking further down, but we just need to make sure that we are in contact and aware of what's going on within each project.
If we can find builders that have their own water already, their water shares, then that will aid us greatly. And I believe that that's the case for the annexation and the 3,500 homes that are going to be going in. That the builder actually has those shares, the water available to build those houses, which is very, very good. So if we can find builders like that, we'd be in really good shape. Secondly, conservation is always important, and I'm on the Parks Board for Firestone, and one of the things in looking at the development of Central Park is to have a lake, which would actually have a beach, so you could be swimming in it, but also that water can be used to irrigate all the growing things on the property. So, and then moving it over to Stone Ridge subdivision, we've looked into, in our subdivision, in reducing consumption by using bubblers and drip systems rather than sprinklers. And we have 17 acres there, and we've greatly diminished our water usage and have, with the cooperation of the town of Firestone, have come up with some great ideas for improving our subdivision and have the water available. So working on conservation and creative ways to use the water.
My turn?
Your turn, sir.
I'm the end. Let me put some stark reality out there. I believe I'm correct, that we have about 200 buildable lots left in Firestone. And that means there's water to them. When they run out, we're done, folks, unless we find other avenues for water to build future. Now, I lived in Arizona for a short spell, and I hated xeriscaping. It was awful. It was ugly. It was nasty. But I've been over into Lafayette and Louisville where they have 1,200 square foot homes on 4,000 square foot lots, and they're xeriscaped, and I don't know who designed it, but it'll knock your socks off. A way of conserving water. And they have cut the water usage down from a half acre foot to a third or less acre foot on those houses. And it begins to save and adds up. You can have shower heads, you can have commode, you can have all the, but when it's saved outside, and then the state just approved, or is still in the process, but it's approved, you can catch 110 gallons of water off your roof, and you can water your flowers with it. There is also grass out there that'll take the place of bluegrass and use about half the amount of water that our wonderful Kentucky bluegrass sucks in, and it looks just as well. So there are things out there we can do. We may have to change our regs a little bit so that we don't say, you gotta have bluegrass, but that's all right if we have water for the present and the future.
So my wife's grandpa was a farmer in central Weld County. And he was having a discussion, he was telling me a story, and he was having a discussion with another farmer who was bragging about the water rights he had. And he had this abundance of water rights. And he said, do you have a place to store it? And he goes, no. And he goes, well, you don't own any water. It is about the water retention. So it's not just about having the rights to water. It's not just about conserving water, but it is about also having facilities to store that water in times of when we have the feast of the water, so that we have it when we have the famine of the water, right? When we have those droughts. Water off our roofs. But they also approved a system called a gray water system. What a gray water system is a system that captures like your shower water, your drain water in your sinks in your bathroom, the water that's not contaminated, and you can capture that water and reuse it on your property before it leaves your property. As long as you're using it in your house, it's a single use of that water. And with that kind of system, up to 400 gallons you can still use. With that kind of water, you can flush your toilets, you can irrigate your lawns. So even in a drought, since this water has been used for a purpose, it's not water that's being wasted. So I'd like to see opportunities where we look at those opportunities. I'm not saying it's the golden nugget, but it's an opportunity. It's an option. Thank you.
The answer, right?
Yes.
So we've got a lot of audience questions, including a couple that were already submitted up here. So I'm gonna shuffle these up really well. And if the candidates don't mind, we'd like to cut answers down to 1 minute. If we do that, we can get through 2 of them in our last 15 minutes. I'll just have Chris pull off the top once I shuffle them.
Here's our first question. And if I read your question incorrectly, please feel free to correct me. What is town debt? Are we working with a balanced budget? How are we going to get to be debt-free and have a balanced budget if we're not? And what are your spending priorities?
1 minute and go. Well, not being a board member, but I do see the finance committee. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but we do have a very balanced budget. We are in a very good financial position. The two trustees, 2 staff members, and 2 community members look at this every month and monitor. And So I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, and I'm not gonna try to quote them here, and it probably wouldn't be appropriate, but any resident of the town is welcome to go to those meetings and see the numbers every month. And I'll be short and turn it over, I guess we're going down to Matt.
State requires us to be balanced, so we have to go in with reserves, out with reserves, and have to spend our, and I think every municipality, quasi-governmental entity has to do that, so, we have very low debt, we have a few things we lease, but in general, just very, very minimal debt. We did, with the road, with the tax increase for the road, we did bond some money and, have that, available for future projects, so. Prioritization, you know, we started out with this, watch my time, because I'm sorry, this is really compressed. Safety, public health things, I think are the highest priority. Those things, and our town has kind of been built on that, the way it is. I think in terms of, if we get beyond that, we really have to kind of give and take and ask the public for, increases and things beyond that, so.
I don't wanna, the comments, just about the, financial and whether we're budget, you know, has been answered. But for prioritization, you know, public safety is always first. Spending money, and making sure some projects on foundations, is a big one for me, making sure that when the economy comes in, businesses come in, we have those foundations set, so we can, make sure we offer incentives and make it easy for, businesses to come into town, the town of Firestone, so.
Well, Matt answered it very well about the budget, that it needs to be balanced. So it certainly continues that would be a priority, but along with that, the need for our, police department and public safety, would be a priority in budgeting. They need help now, and we need to give it to them. And also, so with that priority, would be responsible in having a budget that works within our means to pay.
Okay. By the state statute, we have to have a balanced budget. There's no way for us to get out of that, even if we wanted to. But there are times when debt becomes an investment. And as it becomes an investment, the return comes back over years. For example, everybody's mentioning public safety, and I'm not against public safety. I can't outrun the cops anyhow. I'm too fat. But when you look at maybe just building one facility, when you could build a footprint building, a municipal building, and have tied to it wings of different, and then as you build out over the years, as the town grows, we haven't built a building now and a building then and a building tomorrow. We're building for the future, and we're investing in the future. And the more we can do now, the less it's gonna cost tomorrow.
I think that a lot of it's already been said as far as balanced budgets and what the priorities ought to be. Should be, of course, on public safety, infrastructure of the streets, the things like that. And this town has done a very good job of investing correctly, of aligning the budget with those things. When we looked at our road for infrastructure, for example, we did go for the town did go and get our vote approval to increase the sales tax to cover the maintenance of our roads and to maintain those roads. And I think that they've done a fantastic job. The staff, one of the things that I can say about our staff in this town is what they do with a dollar is quite amazing. They really stretch a dollar. And I wish I could had time, I could spend an hour talking about how well they do that. But the bottom line is, they do a great job with that. The only way that we can get ourselves out of whack is if we borrow a lot of money. And we do it in a way and at a time when it's not appropriate. And that's the kind of thing that we need to focus on, is make sure that we're not borrowing money in the wrong time and for the appropriate ability to repay it. Thank you.
I was a banker for 20 years, and it's really important to me. Finance is really important to me. You know, part of my banking career was I was a lender, I was an investor, did many things, and to me, finance is huge. As they said, we have to have a balanced budget. State statute says we have to do that. But at the same time, I think we have to be wise with your funds, you know, my funds, your funds, as a taxpayer. The things that we do need to focus on right now. Police, absolutely, that needs to happen now. Again, go drive behind Safeway and look at the police facility, and you'll be amazed that we're still doing business with a facility like that today with this many people and with this future growth coming up. I don't like debt. If we're gonna take on debt, it's gonna have to be very minimal, because I think, you know, I'm one of those, I guess, old-fashioned people where it's pay cash and we pay for what we can at this point in time. So I don't like debt, and I'll certainly, you know, work to not incur as much as we can, so.
All right, we're gonna try to sneak in one more question here. So, pulling off the top.
If your question doesn't get asked, see me afterward, make sure I have your email address, I'll connect you with the candidates.
Yeah, I think we might wanna come up with a way to put it online so everybody kinda consolidate it. So we'll get together and figure that out. Do you favor incentives, and Matt, you're first here. Do you favor incentives to attract new businesses, and if yes, what kind of incentives?
That's a good one, because I've been in the spot where I've had to do that a couple of times. Business is about taking risk, and occasionally there's I think, like, in terms of, like, I think of one like a Home Depot, which is a significant sized business where you look and you figure out ways of kind of giving them some treat to kind of get them across the line. I in general don't like doing that, because I think you go into business to do that, but I think to kind of stimulate growth, you do that, and it has to be, you try and find that balance point where you're just on the other side, where it benefits the community as much as possible without giving too much away.
I love Matt to death, but I'm gonna tell you all, he voted no on Home Depot. So, we went round and round back then about it, but, because I, felt that those incentives that they offered us, or that we offered them, and what we were getting in return far outweighed what we got. And now we're 10 years down the road, and look at us out there. And that was a risk that, as a town, we were prepared to take. And, you know, that communication with THF at the time came in and they spoke with us, and we got as much information as we possibly could. I remember conversations Matt and I had that were 3 hours long. But so the two of us were doing our due diligence, but we need somebody that is prepared to take a risk along with all of the homework that staff is doing, and the conversations your board is having, because that's what has made Firestone better than any of the neighboring towns right now, is taking that risk and doing that homework.
Yes, and the staff is so very important. They work endlessly, tirelessly almost, with the best in Firestone in mind. And so the trustees, we're really rookies. We're the ones learning from them. We need to listen to the experts. We need to listen to the bankers. We need to listen to those who are familiar with returns and what the opportunities are and what the costs are. Now for us, if we offer an incentive to a company to come in, and what are the benefits? And those benefits always have to be, if maybe not now, but in the future, for the benefit of Firestone.
The library will be closing in 15 minutes. If you have items to check out or items to print, please do so now. Thank you.
Okay, we gotta go.
Since I have to talk fast, incentives are investments. And those investments come back to us in sales tax and places to shop and do whatever we want. That's plain and simple. We invest in them, they put their money back here, and we reap the benefits. Thank you. Was that short enough?
That was short enough, and that was sweet enough, actually. I agree with that 100% right there. It is an investment. Now, we don't wanna bring businesses and give away the farm, should we say, but the bottom line is, you know, a lot of the kind of incentives that have been done in the past have been deferment of, or rebates along our sales tax. In other words, Home Depot not being there, we wouldn't have collected that tax anyways. Home Depot being there, the tax money that comes into that, that's given back in rebates in order to, as a part of getting them to come there. Look, in the future, that comes back to us in spades. So that's the kind of incentives I think that are great, because we know they're not really a loss to us. We aren't losing anything. We're not giving away anything. We're just giving what we don't already have. That's an effective way to incent businesses to come here. But like George said, there's other kinds of incentives, right? That are investing to get, because we need certain services of certain opportunities we'd like. You got to kind of go for those. Thank you.
I think there's a fine line with incentives, and for me, in general, no, I don't like incentives. You know, if a business wants to come in and do business with Firestone, you know, then we need to work through the process. However, I do think there are exceptions to the rule. You know, again, being a banker for 20 years, not everything is a black and white scenario. And I think you have to look at every business and every scenario individually. But I wouldn't say, you know, everything should have an incentive and we're gonna incent everybody that wants to come in here. I don't think you should say that we're not going to incent somebody. So again, depending on the scenario, if it's a good thing for Firestone and it's a good fit for Firestone, then sure, let's take a look at it. But in general, no, I am not one for incentives.
I would agree with you. I'm not a big incentive guy, but I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to work with the staff and at the town. I don't remember if it was, somebody pointed out, the trustees are volunteers. The staff are professional. It's our job to listen and to evaluate and contribute ideas and then eventually work with them. Sometimes they have great ideas, sometimes they don't. You gotta give them feedback. So I would like to see us minimize the risk. Yes, that is a big item for businesses. The bigger businesses can risk a little more. The smaller businesses, we can't. And whatever we can do to set it up to minimize those risks, I'm all for it. So, and we are out of time.
So sorry to rush everybody out of here. Definitely some great conversation. I know as a resident of Firestone, I feel exceptionally blessed with the candidates that we have. I know whoever ends up winning is going to do an excellent job. So can we give them all a round of applause? We're going to try to figure out a way to get these questions answered and put out electronically. Thank you so much for your attendance tonight and for taking part in our civic government. Thanks.